a young man who's, I believe, older than me but stronger than me, on to tell his story. And I'm going to bring him on right now, and there he is. But I am going to just kind of reiterate what I had said. Darryl is an amazing, amazing guy, and he doesn't even know how much I revere him. He didn't know either that at the Walls Protocol, I had read 2 of his books. They're on my shelf. Now I'm living in Atlanta, Georgia, and there's a man from United Kingdom that just by chance I read his books, and now I'm meeting him. So immediately I was starstruck. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy awesome. But just to review his CV, his resume, his accomplishments. I mean, they are many. They are many. He's an author of 2 books. I'm not going to pull up. I'm going to go by memory, guys. Sorry. Author of 2 books. He is a designer of the primal play method, a way to move and enjoy movement for health and vitality. He's been featured and I'm just going by memory, Darryl, so you could pinch in here, but she's been featured in many magazines, Elite and Men's Fitness, to name a few. He's also been featured in a BBC documentary. And so I've showed him your video, Darryl, of what kind of one things you do. That one, the nice one, it makes me kind of tear up because you're jumping on a wall and pulling up, and you're teaching folks how to move and how to move from a primal level. So we were kind of filling the time here because people were like, I mixed up. I'm sure I told you the wrong time. So I was trying to fill up the time. I was telling them my tales of woe, and for me, I end up going to the gym and all that. But what you're doing is really a prelude or segue, because Dr. Charlin was just on, and his advice was cross-body movement and primal movement. I said, well, you know what, Doc? We got Darryl Edwards coming in tomorrow, and he is, what I consider the premier expert in that field. So tell us a little bit of your story, Darryl, because you started investment bank, or was it, or you were working in an office? Right?
Yeah. So people who often meet me now don't realize, they watch my videos, they assume I've always had a background in physical activity, but I was definitely a geek and a nerd. I wasn't a jock. So I was a computer programmer. I was one of the first kids that I knew of anyway that had a home computer back in the 70s. And rather than just playing games on them, I actually programmed. I learned to program at a very early age. And back in those days, it was connected to your TV. And I sit right in front of the TV, probably why I'm wearing glasses now. And I learned to write computer code. And that was one of the first instances that took me away from just being outside all day and playing. So I did have a free range childhood, get out of the house, amuse yourself, come back when dinner's ready was pretty much a daily mantra from mom. But I had a home computer and I started programming it. It then developed into my career. I worked initially just writing software for software houses. I worked for Microsoft back in the 90s.
Darryl, was this all self-taught, or was this were you?
Well, no. I mean, when initially it was self-taught, but
yes.
I then studied computer science at university. Got a master's degree in information technology.
Impressive. Okay, great.
So I worked for Microsoft back in the 90s. Then I got headhunted to work. I remember actually I turned down Microsoft twice because I felt they weren't going to pay me enough money, even though they were the biggest tech organization at the time, and my CV would have done wonders for my CV. But I turned them down because I felt I wanted to make more money, and in financial companies, investment banks were where you could make considerable money, and they started to use technology in a big way. So I was riding the crest of that wave. I spent almost 20 years within investment banking.
20 years.
But the downside was the upside was I was doing what I loved. I was traveling around the world. I was working 16 to 18 hours a day, and I got paid very well for doing that. I had huge responsibility, and it opened up a whole new world to me. I came from a very impoverished background, and I then got to a stage where I could kind of do whatever I wanted to financially. So it was a remarkable kind of rags to riches tale.
Great.
The downside was that I started to suffer health issues because of my unhealthy lifestyle. So I was pre-diabetic. I had chronic low back pain for 20 years. I used to wear knee supports. It'd be uncomfortable walking up the stairs without my knees giving way. I was anemic. I had suffering from hypertension, high blood pressure. I had a really poor cholesterol profile, lipid profile. So I had elevated risk of cardiovascular disease. So I had these annual health checks, and one year the doctor said to me, Darryl, we're really concerned about your health. Nothing is looking good for you in the medium term, let alone the long term. And when I asked my doctor what I could do, I was like, look, I'll pay whatever it takes. What do I need to do to sort myself out? And they listed a list of medication that would help. So, statins for my cholesterol.
Correct.
Give you some beta blockers for your blood pressure. We can give you some iron supplementation for your anemia. We can give you, make sure we'll keep you on the pain relief, for your back pain. So I was on diazepam, Valium. I was on pethidine, which is normally given to women in labor.
So you were really sick. I mean,
I was not in a good way. And the only reason I didn't start on the meds was only because when I asked the question of one, how long would I have to be on the meds for? It was like rest of your life. And secondly, when I was asked about the side effects, which is what I was mostly concerned about, I was told, oh, we can manage the side effects by giving you an alternative. Don't worry about it. We can, lots of people take these meds and nothing happens. If anything does happen, we'll manage those side effects for you. And I was kind of like, that doesn't sound great to me. So what else can I do? What about lifestyle? And my doctor said, oh, there's not really much you can do. It's down to genetics. You're getting older. You're eating a healthy diet, as far as I'm concerned. You go to the gym every once in a while. You're a non-smoker. Have you cut back on alcohol? Yeah, okay. Not much else you can do.
How old were you approximately at that point?
I was in my mid-30s then.
Yeah. Okay.
So
it'd been 20 years.
Relatively young guy.
Sure. Still are.
Concerned that why was this happening to me at such a young age? Yep. But at the same time, there were people, not much older than I, especially where I was working. There were colleagues of mine who were dying or having heart attacks in their early 40s. So in a way, even though I felt very young, at the same time, not much, in not many years, there were people who were kind of suffering from diseases of what you assume to be diseases of aging, who were having these issues, relatively young. So I decided I did have a book on my bookshelf, a shelf help book as I called it.
Yes, I got one of those.
Yeah, many of those propping at the shelf. But yes. I had a book called The Paleo Diet by Lauren Cordain, which I'd had on my bookshelf for a few years, early 2000s.
I remember
skim reading it the first time, thinking, well, what does a caveman have to do with me? I live in the 21st century. Yeah. But there was something that resonated with me, which was, is there a species, a human appropriate diet? And secondly, if there is, what of my life today, living in 21st century, is mismatched with my ancestry is mismatched with how I'm supposed to be living. So even though I was very skeptical, even though I wasn't sure what I should be eating, one of the things I knew for definite was that I had to become more physically active. You know, I had to stop being this very weak, incapable individual who was just using my income as a mechanism to say, I don't really need to do any physical stuff because I can pay somebody to do it for me, or, you know, I'd rather just use my brain to make a living. Why do I need to move? I recognized then that part of what was ailing me was my lack of physical activity. I recognized that my heart, you know, is a muscle predominantly. You know, it's a pump that works from cradle to grave.
Yes.
So I need to be working that muscle, not just thinking about how I'm fueling it. So my approach is very much movement first. Was actually the first steps for me regaining health, and I tried a few dietary interventions until I settled on a paleo type diet, but it was definitely movement first. My health markers improved significantly within a few months. I got my bloods retested, and I just remember my doctor just telling me he ran the last set of tests, and he said to me he was going away on holiday to the Seychelles for a few weeks, doing rather well for himself. And he said, Darryl, I'll be getting the first set of bloods through in 7 to 10 days. He went, I'll make sure they'll be sent to me. If there are any problems at all, I'll give you a call. I won't wait until I get back off holiday.
Darryl, can I stop you for a second? Can we back up? Like, how did you feel then? You must have felt kind of crummy, no? You know, your doctor was telling you to be on these meds. I mean, you probably weren't feeling well enough to exercise, but so how did you approach that?
You know, well, I suppose I was faced with, because I was faced with pretty stark news around, Darryl, if you don't, you know, my doctor's fairly frank with me. He's like, Darryl, if you do not make these changes, I take these meds, you're probably going to have you're going to have a catastrophic event of some description within the next 5 to 10 years. He was pretty much like, this is a guarantee. You know, it's pretty much a guarantee. So that's what I was being told. You're on these meds. You know, there's only so far we can go on, you know, in terms of pain relief medication.
Yes.
You know, you don't want to get addicted to painkillers. You know, so I'd be asking for more pain relief, and he'd always be like, Darryl, we've got to be careful about, you know, you taking more opiates. You got to be careful about taking these painkillers.
Which is a big problem these days.
Diazepam's a tranquilizer. You know, it's a sedative. You know, you've got to think about this. But I was just thinking, no, just give me the pill to sort me out.
Also addictive, you know, diazepam.
Also addictive, yeah.
So how did you start? Like, you didn't go running and jumping over benches or climbing walls. How did you? Yeah, right. How did you? Where did you start?
Well, you know, not many people know this, but I was inspired by watching. I saw a colleague of mine actually told me about watching the training videos for the movie 300. I don't know if you've seen the movie or aware of the movie, but it's basically about the 300 Spartans who basically tackled hundreds of thousands of Persians in the Battle of Thermopylae, and he says, "Oh, you know, you have to watch the training regimen. You know, like you've got to see what these guys are doing." So I'm like, okay, I'll watch, have a look at these videos. And so I saw these videos, and I remember there's a commentary by the director who said, what we want the audience to believe when this movie comes out is that these guys, one, could actually fight that way, but that the training that they undertook is about improving their function, not just about how they look, not just about aesthetics, but actually it's really about how you compare yourself functionally for whatever life throws at you. And again, that was a light bulb moment. That was the first time I thought about movement or fitness or training as about building my body for.
Because up till now, you were really relatively sedentary in your whole.
Yeah, I was relatively sedentary. You know, I'd buy health magazines. You know, get your six pack in 6 weeks type of,
Yeah,
and
good.
probably do the training for a couple of days, not having any success. But yeah, this is the first time I considered movement for health and function, not just for aesthetics. That was the first time. And so
So,
that's what I did,
so help
basically.
us out here because I'll get a lot of comments that say, "Well, gee, I got rheumatoid arthritis, or I'm in a chair, or I'm on canes." Like how it So where did you start?
Well, I have to really stress. I mean, it sounds, in some respects, it sounds very trivial uh, when I say, I suffered from, I suffered from low back pain for 20 years. Or I used to wear, I used to wear a back brace. I used to wear like a corset for a lot of that time. I used to wear knee supports because if I didn't, it was painful to walk. I mean, I couldn't take stairs. So it's difficult when people see me now and what I do now. It's almost, I don't have those before and after pictures of me keeled over, me not being able to get out of bed. Me being in bed for a few weeks, really struggling to get out of bed because of the pain. So what I would say is that I just recognize that every single incident I had of low back pain, every time I felt pain in my knees, it was only ever getting worse. The more that I rested, the more that I avoided discomfort, the worse it became. So even though I was being told by my doctor, make sure you rest up, make sure you don't do any movement,
Right.
avoid pain, avoid discomfort.
I was
That's the
told the
way
same
to
thing.
manage this. I was like, why is this getting worse and worse over time? It's not getting any better. So the difficult pill to swallow for me was to actually embark on trying to strengthen myself, trying to strengthen my body. And I had to start with I'm talking the basics of the basics. So I couldn't do, even as a very young guy, I was the kind of guy who would struggle to do a push-up. I couldn't
Okay.
do something like a pull-up.
Really?
I couldn't pick up, I remember the first time I tried doing a deadlift, and that was after a while of going to the gym. I mean, I was struggling to pick up half of my body weight. I mean,
Wow.
really, just pretty much the barbell and a couple of small plates. And I remember feeling so proud about doing that. So
Great.
I started off with the basics of good functional movements, trying to do a squat without any weight, just being able to bend my knees.
Where did you
You
learn
know,
this functional movement? Just from watching and just the
uh,
show and just from
yeah.
self?
So I looked at the trainer of the the guy who trained the actors in the stuntmen in 300. And it was a guy called Mark Twight, based out in Salt Lake. He had a website. He had a box out there. He was one of the first guys to work with Greg Glassman of CrossFit, the founder of CrossFit. So he
Sure.
used a lot of those kind of principles,
Great.
but he had, in my opinion, a very well balanced approach to
So,
developing functional
so
movements.
just break it down for the people that don't understand. You're talking about
Mm.
full body, multi-jointed, compound. I mean, break it down a little bit
Yes.
better because you'll say
Yeah.
better than I.
Yeah. So I would say movements. The kind of top 3 points from that point, which is over 15 years ago now, so quite a while ago, was basically focusing on functional movements. So what movements do I actually want to do day to day? What movements do I want to do, extraordinarily? So not just what I want to
Okay.
do day to day, but what do I want to do that is outside of my current ability? Those are two. Those are two of the things that I focused on for one. Secondly, making sure that those movements were full range of motion, not isolated movements. Just not working one muscle, working multiple joints, multiple muscle groups at the same time. And thirdly, always chasing, I won't say always chasing discomfort, but being aware of what your comfort zone is and always trying to slightly push outside.
I'll interject a little bit. I mean,
Mm.
you're rather unique because at that time, I mean, weren't people just running on the treadmill or going jogging or dieting? I mean, you're doing something that was profoundly different, and even profoundly different
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I totally agree. Uh, I mean, there was, I don't know, I'm not sure what it was, but there was something in that messaging, that narrative that worked for me. And I
Yes.
suppose even going back to my childhood, which I like to do on a regular basis. It's definitely part of who I am now, is this kind of going back, being nostalgic about my childhood. It is like the Rocky movies,
Yes.
the training montage.
Yes.
And Rocky 4 was the Rocky film that probably had the biggest impact on me, actually.
Yeah, that's
That
one of my
training
favorite.
montage with Ivan Drago and
I still listen to the music as I
yeah,
exercise.
that music as well. That music in the
So,
training montage is incredible.
yeah.
Again, even in that film, one of the greatest things about that was you had Ivan Drago from Russia, who was using the latest equipment, like
Yes.
electronics, the best that science could, and Rocky was in this cabin in the middle of Siberia, and he just
Love
had
it. Love it.
rocks
Love
and
it.
logs, and he just had his gym was the environment that he was in, and that definitely fashions me today. Actually, it's thinking,
And
you know,
his
I don't
trainer told me
need,
something
yeah,
that yeah, no, the trainer said something to him that still makes me cry. He says, you know what you need to do. Do it. Do it. And when it
exactly,
says that, I'm like, oh man.
yeah,
So like, of
simple but
course.
powerful. And I must have seen that movie. I mean, then I was in my early teens. No, probably later than that. Actually, probably mid to late teens. But I remember I watched that movie over and over and over
It's
again, and
incredible.
I didn't
Awesome.
know why that montage. It was my favorite part of the film. The music was also one of the favorite parts of that film. The music within that montage, and many years later, when I was thinking about training, and of course I wasn't lifting rocks or anything like that to begin with, but I was definitely thinking about Darryl. We are still there.
We're back.
Yeah,
Sorry
we're
about
back.
that.
I want to get out of the chair without being in pain. I want to be able to take the stairs without being in pain. I want to be able to, lift and carry my shopping with ease. I want to be able to pick up my partner without, wanting to hire someone to do it for me. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
there were just some basic things that I wanted to be able to achieve, and I recognized that the only way to do so would be finding something that would be progressive, starting out small, slow, steady, and constantly building up on that, using compound movements, making sure I had some really good recovery, recognizing that muscle soreness was actually uh, um, a good signal as long as it's an appropriate
Okay.
dose of
Darryl, can
that.
you unpack it a little bit? Because a lot of people
Yeah.
picture the gym as people are lifting weights up or on a treadmill, the elliptical, or maybe running down the road for 5 miles. But you're not talking about that. You're talking about something totally different.
Yeah. So my philosophy now, I did start out in the gym. For sure, I did start out using, did Olympic lifting. I did lots of body weight stuff in the gym, did high intensity protocols. But even within a gym environment, there's something that's not. It's something unnatural about that environment. There's something.
Yes, go on.
Exercise is a 21st century, or not 21st century. It's a modern construct
Yes,
that's a supplement for the fact that we're no longer as physically active as we used to. So
interesting.
our ancestry meant we had to work in order to, get food provision, build shelter, move from one location to the next. We were nomadic. Then once we became more civilized, and agriculture became part of, and the industrial revolution, and so on and so forth. We now have conveniences, which mean we don't have to hunt and gather our foods. We don't have to do anything physically in order to make a living for ourselves. You know, so exercise is a great way to say, "Oh my goodness, I do need to do something physically. Let's exercise." So exercise then means, okay, I need to be in a particular type of place, a gym. I need to use a certain set of equipment. I need to be given a certain type of instruction, and follow a set of exercises, which can be very structured, require lots of discipline. Whereas now I see movement and physical activity and my gym as being the great outdoors. I don't need special equipment. I can be anywhere with anyone and undertake really powerful movements that are helpful. And once I recognized that this was what was beneficial to me, and that play, making it playful and fun and having enjoyment meant I would have instant gratification. So I would feel good now. I don't have to wait until I've achieved my end result. Like I remember I only used to feel good if I could say, right, you know what, my objective is to lift twice my body weight in a deadlift. And if I get there, then I can celebrate. Then I can let my friends know. I can post it on social media what a great guy I am. Now I
Right.
feel great when I start moving and feeling really good about it. When I've got a smile on my face, when my mood improves, when I get that feel good factor that comes from taking part in movement. So for me, that's what I wanted for movement, which I hadn't realized for many, many years. It wasn't just about getting stronger. It wasn't just about improving my physical capability. It was the feeling that comes from that, of using your body in a way that it was designed to do, and spending time experiencing and exploring what you can and what you can't do. So there were many times that there were things that I couldn't do, but it just made me spend more time exploring, well, what can I do? And how can I get to where I want to get to, rather than thinking, oh, I just can't do this, I can't do that, I might as well just give it a miss. It just enabled me to be a little bit more creative, because once you're stagnant, once you stop moving, is when it becomes problematic for us as human beings. There's an old Chinese saying about water. When water's still is when it becomes stagnant. It's when it harbors disease. But when it's flowing, that's when it's a kind of a healthy environment, is when water is flowing,
Very interesting.
and not when it's still. So I feel the same way about movement. When I'm sedentary, I do feel worse, both physically and mentally. I do start feeling aches and pains that I used to have many years ago. I'm more likely to be aware of them when I'm sedentary for a given period of time. Once I start moving, I feel much better. So it
So
became
Dr.
medicinal
Doc,
for me.
Dr. Charlin, that functional neurologist, and I believe he knows you very well, from the Walls Protocol seminar, spoke to that point very directly yesterday, and explaining, kind of giving us the science behind it, which I'm sure you're aware of, about stem cell migration, stem cell activation, stem cell migration, brain-derived neurographic growth factor. I mean, there are real science. What we're doing, we're elevating growth hormone through our fasting. We're decreasing we're stabilizing our insulin. I mean, this is the real deal, guys. This isn't just like we're throwing spaghetti at the wall hoping it sticks. This is medicine. No?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, unfortunately, many people in the health space, especially those who recognize how amazing nutrition is and how powerful food is as medicine, they tend to overlook something which is as equally as important, in my opinion, is far more important than your choice of food. And the only reason I'm saying that is because if you think about, again, going back to our ancestry, in order for us to have these healthful food choices which are available to us, we would have to seriously graft for that food. Like you'd
Yeah.
have to walk for
Hmm.
miles. You'd have to carry.
Sure.
If you killed a gazelle,
So this would be analogous to the blue zone. That this is not just what they're eating, but it's how they're eating, how they're thinking, how they're moving.
Exactly. So physical activity, all of the blue zones, pretty much. If you have a Venn diagram of the blue zones, their
Hmm.
dietary choices are all different.
Okay.
There's a little bit of overlap, but
Yeah.
they tend to be quite varied. Some have
That's
high
confused.
carbohydrates than others.
So I was always confused by that. I never considered the lifestyle changes, but you're illuminating that. But go ahead.
So they all have a different dietary, kind of composition of their diet, which varies significantly throughout all the blue zones. But the one thing they have in common is the fact that none of them are sedentary. They're all significantly physically active as part of their day-to-day life. You know, they don't necessarily exercise, but they move, and
Because
they
their
move
life.
in a way that is purposeful. So, you know, they don't just go for a walk. You know, they'll be the individuals 80, 90 years old who'll be carting something heavy from one section to the next. They'll still be out gardening. You know, they'll be doing stuff.
So that's a mentality change, and I follow myself falling in the trap. Like I got this supplement, I got this food, I'm eating this seaweed, I'm eating this. So every time yesterday I would talk to Dr. Charlin, he's a very wise man. Every time I would kind of fall into that trap, he would re-guide me like, no, physical activity may be number one in Parkinson treatment. And then we don't even, you know, we begin to touch on the mental hygiene and sleep hygiene and movement, you know, that is analogous to that. So I think we're all speaking to the same. I mean,
yes, I feel we're different on the same page. You know, Dr. Charlin's on the same page, but unfortunately, we're not hearing. I don't think
yes,
we're hearing that message enough. And even
yeah.
when we do hear it, it tends to be, you know, look at what food will do for you. This. And by the way, guys, don't forget to throw in a little bit of exercise because you know it's good for you. You know,
Because the nature of society, I suppose, has become, as you said, it become this passive nature. Dr. Charlin touched on this. Even Dr. Wallace touched on it. We're looking for that pill that we could take, or we could go to the masseuse, or go to, you know, and get these things done for us. But what Charlin says, that sometimes people don't want to be motivated, but if they want to reap the rewards, and you're kind of echoing this, not kind of, you're exactly echoing it, they need to work to
yeah, for
heal.
sure. Yeah. We have to. We you know, everything about the human existence, you know, from either our creation or design or evolution, whatever our belief is, you know,
Correct.
has been contained some form of struggle. So
Hmm.
hormesis, you know, dealing with
Yeah.
acute
Yeah.
stresses is
Yeah.
important. It's shaped us. We adapt based on that, and
He also agrees with that.
yeah,
He
and
talked about
so
stress is a good thing. When
yeah,
it can be, it can be a good thing.
it can be a
Can
good thing, and it should be as long as it's the appropriate dose. So
be.
all of these things in low doses are helpful. If they become chronic, they can become harmful. So it is, again, it is appropriate dosing. You know, but I know for a fact if I avoid physical pain, so for example, I avoid working out because I'm aware that I'm going to be sore.
Mm-hmm.
I avoid that process. Then, and I continue to avoid that process. Then what will happen is, yes, I'm avoiding pain, but the likelihood is I'm only going to increase the likelihood of more pain further down the line. My muscles are going to atrophy. Simple tasks are going to become more difficult. I'm more likely, my body composition is likely to increase, you know, body fat rather than maintain. I'm not going to be maintaining lean body mass. So it's a short term gain. I want to avoid pain. It's a bit uncomfortable. Oh, my muscles are sore. You know, to actually muscle soreness means your body will decide to be stronger next time. You know, that's what the signaling is about. One, it's telling you why was I getting sore after doing that bit of physical activity? I need to do that again, don't I? Yes. Okay, get stronger, build bone, build
Okay.
muscle, you know,
So
send healing signals, promote
yes, absolutely.
anti-inflammatory agents throughout the body. So all of those, you know, hormones, which we tend to discuss hormones as if they just start from either from the brain or from the gut. You know, that tends to be again the messaging which we're told. But what we don't realize is in terms of our endocrine system, the muscles are actually the largest organ in the body when it
Interesting.
comes to messaging, cytokine and myokine messaging, promoting healing in the body. So yeah, it's a powerful agent that we have
Sure.
available to us as long as we
For
contract
free.
the muscle,
Yes.
as long as we work the muscle, as long as we stress it adequately to promote, you know, growth and repair, and as long as we do that on a regular basis and not do it too much. So of course that level depends on the individual. You know, then you're going to be getting the benefits of physical activity. And that's just the physical side. That's just the resistance and strength side. Not even looking at the cardiovascular benefits
So just to
as
take you
well.
back a little bit, because you talk about, the pain of exercise, do you feel that you get to a point, and, and I've only been seriously, I mean, I did in the military and I did all that, but as I got older, the only serious exercise, for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and my wife kind of taught me this, that I get to the point, and she's a physical therapist, but she taught me she became addicted to the exercise. And when she didn't do it, she didn't feel mentally correct or physically correct. And now I'm starting to understand it. And
Mm.
so if my body is not sore and not moving, I guess you're dying, that type of thing. So
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's difficult to because I know some people, there is a condition, orthorexia, where people can be unhealthily addicted to exercise. So
yes,
so
yes,
again, I don't want to chase muscle soreness. I don't want to use that as the only indication that my program is effective.
correct.
But I do want to experience that on occasion. So if I continue to do the same thing, my body adapts, and so if I never ever get sore again, in terms of muscle soreness, the impact, the benefit of exercise will be less, because instead of it actually developing or growing, I'll just be more in maintenance mode. So
Correct.
so so DOMS, muscle soreness. Again, we need to be aware of this. This physical stressor, which gives us acute inflammation. High levels. My CRP levels will rise. Creatine kinase, blood marker, that will be elevated. These signs taken in the short space of time will be seen as, oh my gosh, there's inflammation in the body, right? However, in the longer term, that elevation of, say, CRP and other inflammatory markers will be
C-reactive
dampened,
protein, guys. C-reactive protein.
and
It's
yeah,
a
C-reactive
marker for
protein,
inflammation. Um,
they will actually
it
be chronically down-regulated after
sure.
that initial spike of inflammation coming from muscle soreness. So that sign to the body is, oh my goodness, you need healing now. You are sore, you need some healing. We're gonna flood your body with anti-inflammatory myokines, which come from muscle tissue, and that then lowers chronic inflammation throughout the body. So it's
Okay, then I'll
important
add,
part of
add
that process.
I'll add something that I learned, that in order to repair properly, because now I have friends that are into powerlifting and bodybuilders, which I'm not into. I'm just trying to be healthy. But what they explain it is that you have to be hypercaloric. You have to take in more calories than you can use in order to build and repair. If you're dieting like the Biggest Loser, which really
Mm.
bothers me, because that whole idea, I think, has been proven defunct, and I believe the contestants have a gag order that because they've either fallen back to worse or at least the same, that and it was very very for my wife to understand that we have to eat more, but now she's eating more, her whole body's changed, her health has changed. I've gained, everybody hears, oh my god, you gained weight. Well, number one, I say throw the scale away, but I've gained about 30 pounds. And is it fat? No, the fat is gone. Now I
Mm.
have structure. So it tells me that I was not only nutritionally um, deficient, but my body needed something. I mean,
Yeah, it's in an anabolic phase. Most people do need to eat more protein than the recommendations, for sure.
okay,
And and I can see why. If I was a big loser contestant and I was, you know suffering with morbid obesity, you
yes,
can, and I need to lose weight rapidly. You can see why these programs are successful. Calorie restrict, work out excessively, and we'll get somewhere. Most people do have a set point, I believe, and it becomes harder to maintain that weight loss over time. And that's why a lot of these people do bounce back, as you say. And it's not just even the Biggest Loser. There were a lot
nope,
of diets where there's significant restriction. People
correct.
do regain that weight within 1 to 5 years. I've actually gained, since going back 15 years. I've gained about, I'm not sure what it is in pounds, unfortunately. I've gained probably about 10, 15 kilos. And
So you just divide by 2. So he's about 4 to 5 pounds.
So about 35, about 35 to 40 pounds, I'd say I've gained.
Okay.
And
You multiply times.
and most of that has been muscle, not fat. And this is why I feel some of these studies around the effectiveness of diet versus exercise are misleading, because if you do have a well-rounded exercise program, and you're not significantly overweight or obese, then you are likely to gain lean body mass, muscles denser than fat. You may actually gain weight because you're gaining muscle mass. So the scales alone, or using weight as a barometer alone, is not necessarily a good idea. You want to be looking at body fat percentage. You want to be looking at things like waist circumference, waist to hip ratio. They're far more suitable markers to assess your body composition than just weight alone. Because if I base it on weight alone, I would be very unsuccessful. If I looked at BMI, I'm in the overweight category for BMI, but my body fat percentage,
Right.
I'm very athletic in terms of my body fat. Usain Bolt, for example, he's overweight based on BMI. Do you know what I mean? So it shows that we need to take a more detailed look at some of these metrics that we bandy around.
So my kind of mantra with my wife, and we've kind of been on this journey together, which has been rather cool. And she's amazing that she's participating. But my mantra always been, and she's been brought up in society that the scale is king. And to me, I'm like, you know what? Let's just throw the scale out. And we didn't, but I'm echoing what you said. It's body composition. So
Yes.
the scale is just how much gravity is pulling on your feet.
Yes,
It
for sure.
doesn't tell the picture.
Yeah, for some people, I do have a scale myself, but I use that scale if I use it for my clients, but only because I'm looking at body composition measures, i.e., body fat percentage. I'm looking at things like bone density. So those things are important for me to know, and important for me to track with my clients. But it's very rare, and some of my clients, they do need to lose weight, but those individuals would tend to be obese anyway. So if they do have obesity, then they do need to lose weight for sure. But once you start normalizing your weight, what's far more important is the proportion of fat to lean body tissue you have. And in terms of monitoring and tracking those things long term, you don't want to be using absolute weight. You don't want to be losing BMI, which is an estimation. You want to be using body fat percentages. You want to be taking measurements like your waist and hip ratio, because there's good research saying the closer your hip to waist ratio is to 1, you're twice as likely, you increase the likelihood of diseases, conditions like type 2 diabetes, like heart disease, cardiovascular disease, like stress, like strokes, like cancer, just from taking those measurements and seeing how close your hip measurement is to your waist measurement, for example. So there are very simple ways for you to track how well you're doing based on very simple measurements. Have I lost you, Ron?
Hold on. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Have I lost you, Ron?
I believe you have. Hold on one second. Hey, wait. Can you see me?
I can, yeah.
Technology is great when it works.
Yeah, it's superb when it works.
It really does. But the last couple of days has been a test of my patience, but I'm learning. So, when in doubt, I just kind of reboot, and that's what I had to do. But I heard everything you're saying. You just couldn't hear me. So, no, well, I love that body composition conversation. That was spot on. That's really good.
Yeah, for sure. We need to spend, whenever we're being told stats around, some of it needs to be taken with a pinch of salt, because there are a lot of young men, for example, who are in extremely good shape, who would fall into that overweight and obese trap. You know, The Rock, for example, Dwayne Johnson, he's morbidly obese based on his body mass. You know, but of course he's not. He's a very lean individual. So not everyone who weighs a certain amount is overweight or obese. You know, what's your body fat percentage? How much muscle? What's your lean body mass? What are you doing to trying to maintain that? And if you just try to eat your way, you know, again, people don't realize if I eat just really good food, if your body doesn't need that protein you're taking on board, your kidneys will just decide good riddance. Yeah, you know what I mean? Your muscle needs to be refueled and repaired. You know, your bones require those minerals, that micronutrient minerals that you're taking on board. If your bones are continually to you know, osteoblast and osteoclast, that process that occurs, you know, if your weight bearing activity, your bones need to be stronger. Thank goodness I'm taking those minerals on board. So one of the reasons why I do talk about movement being synergenic, you know, synergenic, I think that's what, I'm not sure, but the synergy of food with movement is that to make the best out of your nutrition, you have to be moving of a certain, you know, a certain type of movement and a certain frequency of movement to make.
Dr. Charlin and Dr. Walls totally agree with you that the diet and the supplements are great, but if you're not moving, they're not going to simulate them.
Exactly. And I do believe movement should be prioritized in any lifestyle intervention. Of course, I do have a bias, but
Charlin has a trainer, a physical therapist, a specialized movement trainer that actually works within his office. So he's bought it lock, stock, and barrel. I mean, it
makes sense. I mean, in terms of research, in terms of the evidence base, it's the only intervention that I'm aware of where there is strong evidence that it helps in the prevention of all-cause mortality. So every single cause of death, there's a significant reduction of those who are physically inactive versus those who are sedentary, pretty much across the board.
I'm going to steal a quote, and I don't know who said that, but if you could put what you're talking about, the movement, in a pill, it'd be a record breaking. You know, you know,
I mean, that would be Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
So,
that'd be.
So this is
remarkable.
This is for free. This is for free.
It's for free. Yeah, exactly. We just need to, you know, the downside is, and I've been thinking about this, actually really thinking about this the last few days seriously.
Okay.
I was in a debate with someone, and they mentioned about, you know, if it was only so simple, you know, why aren't people doing more of it then? Something along those lines. And I've just been thinking to myself, well, again, humans, we inherently want to conserve calories. We want to, you know, we want to conserve energy.
Okay.
Because that gave us a survival advantage. If we just ran around burning calories for the sake of it, not knowing if we were going to get food tomorrow, we wouldn't survive as a species.
Understood.
So our ability to conserve calories, to you know, to be able to fast.
Great point.
All those things are really important.
Great point.
But so in the 21st century, where you now have an environment where, wow, I don't have to sit on the ground, I can sit on a couch. Wow, I don't need to walk, I can just take the lift, you know, the elevator, I can take the public transport, I can get into my car, I can sit all day at my desk job, I don't have to be out in the field, you know, working. You know, we're now surrounded by convenience, which means it's even more difficult to optionally be physically active, because there's something in our brain saying, why would you choose?
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. So I kind of even as much as it's needed, also goes against our program, because I guess historically or ancestral that we moved because we had to, because there was
we had to. Yeah.
We needed to get food, or there was an animal, or whatever the issue is.
Yeah. And then if you think about it, when you think about all of the rituals that are universal for us as humans, you know, whether it's playing games, whether it's dancing, you know, rites of passage, whatever it is.
Awesome.
They all exist. Usually, you know, when there's abundance. So, you know, you'd probably dance when you've got your successful kill and you've had your feast.
And a feast, yes. I was about to say
then you can celebrate. Then you can burn calories. You know, like, you know, if a woman doesn't have much food, she's less likely to reproduce, for example. So you know, so it's all a pointer to, when you've obtained your food, usually through physical activity of how you would get it, whether you're hunting or gathering or scavenging, then you create the conditions whereby you can choose to optionally move because, hey, I can have some fun, I can now dance or whatever, celebrate.
That's a great point. Well
In the
said.
21st century, it's like I can do whatever I like. Food is always available. It tends to be
Abundance.
very highly energy dense, nutrient poor. Most of our choices, the poor
Absolutely.
choices, of course. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so I do feel even more that movement should be prioritized because it has an evolutionary. It's almost at the top of the evolutionary lifestyle chain, in my opinion. I don't know. I should probably get copyright on that statement, but
You should. You absolutely should, because it's a good point. Well, I think I've taken. Excuse me, I'm starting to lose my voice. I think I've taken a lot of your time. But I would just, if we could just ask you a final question, and this kind of speaks to what people are talking about. We don't. But like, how would you start? Because a lot of the folks, including myself, they have incredible barriers. So of course I'm not going to go run over and jump a chair or climb a wall. What's your advice for somebody like myself, or even worse, how do you get started? That, I guess, this is a burning question that I'm seeing from many folks.
So I just saw a question pop up there from, I think it was Susie, who mentioned
Yes.
about our NMI program suitable for chronic fatigue. So yeah, I do have a number of clients, some of who do have chronic fatigue, who have ME issues, and it's all about, if you believe movement is medicine, then it's finding the appropriate dose, the right prescription for that individual. So it's not a case of just throwing an exercise program saying, hey, just do more activity. It's what's going to be appropriate. It's what's going to be the right dose, which isn't going to cause a setback in your client. So if somebody has, it's difficult for them to get out of bed, and they know if they did a 30-minute program that they'd be in bed for weeks because it'd be just too traumatic for them to do, then it's not the fact that exercise is detrimental to them. It's the fact that it just wasn't the right medicine for them. So they need.
So I'm fortunate. I have a wife that's a physical therapist, and of course I look to people like yourself. But if somebody that doesn't, what are your recommendations? Would you ask them to go seek help from a physiotherapist or a trainer as yourself?
Seek out an individual like myself. I mean, there are plenty of others, but an individual such as myself who understand, that fitness and exercise isn't just for fit and healthy people. We all have different starting points. So for somebody who encounters excessive fatigue, which is another question that Susie asked, if I exercise, I have more detrimental fatigue than when I started.
Yes.
So I know the evidence states that you're less likely to suffer from fatigue if you're physically active. That's what the evidence tells us. That's what the research tells us. What people tend to do is they tend to just do too much too soon. And so I've had clients where I've given them 20 seconds of movement snacks, and that's all they'll do for that day. 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 35 seconds, gradually progressing.
Like a high intensity interval training.
Yes, it's high. It's intense enough to have a beneficial impact, but not so traumatic that it makes them, kind of relapse.
Dr. Terry Walls spoke about that in her last lecture, exactly about the
So it's just about
doses,
about finding the appropriate dose, the minimal effective dose, and somebody who has experience of dealing with individuals with your condition, whatever that condition is. So whether it's multiple sclerosis, whether it's ME, whether it's Parkinson's, whatever the condition is, whether it's cardiac rehabilitation.
Just to put an example to here, they really drive in what he's saying. Now, my wife's a physical therapist, and she's a little brutal with me. And I'm like, well, I can't do that. She's like, well, you can crawl on your hands and knees, can't you? Or you could move your arm. I like to. She'll always find a way to get movement. Yes. There's never an excuse they can't move, even if I were
exactly. And you've seen me at at Terry Walls' seminar, and trust me, I know when I'm about to give a session, you know, I can look at people's eyes, you know, eyes glaze over, like, you know, can you see who's in the room, Darryl? Like, do
Oh,
you really
there's
understand what's
fear.
going on?
There's fear.
But pretty much everyone within that seminar
Yes.
is taking part, whether they're in a chair, whether they need assistance.
And immediately there's laughter and there's
Yeah.
smiles and there's it just lights up the room. So you really do a great job there.
Well, thank you. And I
Yeah.
suppose, you know, it's important to note that we can all achieve this. So another thing that I think is really important to mention is that we should never ever use another individual or even use ourselves as a reference. In other words, how I used to be, you know, what I used to be able to do, what my peers can do, what my family members can do, what my friends can do. That's detrimental. The only thing that I think about when I'm playing out, I don't even work out anymore. I play out. When I'm playing out now, the only thing I focus on is my experience at this minute, this moment. I may be weaker than yesterday for whatever reason. I may feel stronger today than I did yesterday.
That's great.
All that matters is that
Darryl.
today I'm going to embark on this journey. I'm going to have an experience. I'll take a mental note. I'll have bodily awareness to say, you know what, today maybe I need to scale it back a bit, or today I need to push it a little bit more. And as long as I keep that kind of frame of reference and remain mindful, not in the meditative sense, but just in the purest sense of the word, then everything's great. So anyone can have that realization, because again, the 21st century, we're driven by this. It's competition. It's like, I've got to be better than I was yesterday, and we can't deal with setbacks. The reality is, we can't control everything. That's real life, and we have to be able to deal with, you know, setbacks and when things really aren't going our way, and dealing with adversity. And I feel physical activity, in some respects, is almost a way of artificially creating, you know, an obstacle for yourself that you may overcome today, you may overcome next week, but you can have constant improvement and continuous improvement.
This is great. Absolutely great, Darryl. Darryl, I feel bad taking more of your time, and
don't. If you want to carry on talking, I'm free to talk, mate. So it's up to, if it's valuable to you and the audience, I've got a bit more time.
I think we do. I think that people could email and we can make questions if you don't mind doing this on a regular basis, because, you know, even Dr. Charlin said yesterday that the diet becomes easy, right? At first it's like tough. Oh, I can't have sugar. I can't have bread, but then it becomes easy. But then what's the next step? All right, now I'm just pounding down supplements. He's like, that's not, you know, that's not enough. And then he gets into diet. I'm sorry, not diet, a movement and mental hygiene, the sleep hygiene. And so I think that what you're talking about is spot on. And
it just improves, you know, with nutrition, right? There is so much ambiguity around nutrition. And there's a reason why, I feel. Because I believe we're omnivorous. I believe we can eat, you know, we can probably eat more a varied diet than any other animal on the planet.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why we've been able to live in all over the world. You know, most animals can only live within their own localities. We can live anywhere on the planet because we have been able to adapt to survive on, you know, plants, animal matter of varying types and descriptions. We've been able to determine what's healthy for us, what isn't, what's poisonous, what isn't. You know, we've been able to tell our offspring what foods to avoid, what foods to gravitate. We've got cultures around different foods. So all over the world, you know, we have healthy individuals eating different types of foods. We have nutritional science, which one day will tell you this is great. The next day will say maybe not so good. Whereas with physical activity, I mean, pretty much across the board.
Good point.
You know,
Great point.
There may be discussions about what the best type of activity is, you know, how long you should be doing it for.
Correct.
But there's never any debate about, you know, being sedentary is okay. I mean, there are no healthy sedentary populations. None. But I can definitely say there were sedentary populations who are eating foods that you and I wouldn't choose to eat. Do you know what I'm saying? So there's something more to this than just just food.
In the United States, we can just look at the diabetes and the heart disease ratio, even though we're doing what the media tells us to do. There's not many people out there, Darryl, that are talking what you're talking.
Yeah,
You
because
know,
it's even for myself, when I first, as I told you, movement for me was the first step. Then I got into nutrition. I became a nutritionist, and I really believed that was going to be my mission. My mission
yes.
initially was all about food, because I believe, that's the secret, that's the key.
I had totally forgotten you're a nutritionalist, so that's
Yeah.
because your message,
And
the
then
other message, is so powerful.
I found out, hold on a second, let me start questioning movements a little bit more. Let me start seeing if movement can be medicine also. Let me have a
Lem-
look at this research. And
Let
as
me,
you see my presentations, I cover that
yes,
in a lot of detail.
very well. Let me ask you how old you are, Darryl, because you are strong. I mean, like Darryl.
I only my mom knows my age. So
Okay, but anyways, he's stronger than his age. He's stronger than his
but
age. I've
but
seen him pick up Dr. Walls on his back and walk around without
yeah. So
effort. Without effort. So he is
uh,
definitely a lot older. I'm sorry, he is a lot stronger than his age, which is
yeah. So
really phenomenal.
I'm I mean, it's quite a funny. I don't, to be honest, I do have something about my age, which is whenever I look at my passport or my driving license, I'm always kind of like, am I really that old? And I
Yeah, I'm
start,
same way.
it's kind of psychological. So I try not to focus on age. I just try and focus on
Yeah,
what I can do to maintain good health for as long as I possibly can.
it's
And
kind of
I think society hang up about age. And if you go to traditional cultures,
yes,
there are people who are literally like, we don't know how old we are. Like we
yeah.
only know how old we are is because we were told that you were here when such and such an event happened. Do you know what I mean? Like they
I have a
they
Korean
continue.
friend tends to be a bit of a philosopher, but he says, in his culture, when he grew up, you got old to a certain point, and we don't even know what age it was, but then you just died. There was no this idea
Yeah,
of I'm going to be sick for 10 years in the hospital and this drugs. You just passed away. You worked until you
yeah,
just passed away, and that was a beautiful thing, and they celebrated it. I'm going to
yeah, exactly.
ask this one question to you, and I'm going to let you go. My
Yeah,
wife is also waiting for me. I got to go exercise myself. But and this is a good point, but I think you'll speak to it. But this is something that doctors told me when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Please take it easy. Don't move. I not moved right into a wheelchair, Darryl. I know I want you to speak to this, but I personally disagree, and I know Dr. Charlin disagrees. But it speaks to what you said. It's in the right dose for the right patient.
yes. And you know what? Whenever I have been asked this question or challenged a few times. Here's one example. Somebody will say, if exercise is so good for us, if physical activity is so good for us, then how comes this individual who was a marathon runner, why did they get diabetes? If exercise is supposed to help with insulin sensitivity, why did I
Right.
get diabetes? Or I was a national blah, 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 blah. Why did I suffer from a chronic disease such as MS? What if it's supposed to be so medicinal? And every time I look into the background of those individuals, there's something that strikes me. One is I feel that their movement practice was still very one dimensional. So it might be they were doing a lot of endurance activity, kind of chronically stressful activities. They may have been undertaking like combat sports, or like playing American football, or where there's repetitive kind of impact on the they there
Head
tends to
trauma,
be.
etc. Some kind of comorbidity or some other issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there tends to be something along those lines. And again, I would say that exercise, it's like anything else. There is an appropriate dose. There's a and in small doses, and to moderate doses, it's perfectly fine. If you can have a wide sphere, it's a bit like, if I decide just to eat avocados, as nutritious as avocados are, if I only ate avocados, there's a point in time my body would say, you have some serious nutritional deficiencies. Even though, even if I had, I don't know, lamb's liver, as
I
nutritious a superfood as that
absolutely
is,
agree.
if
I
I
understand.
only had that,
Good
I know
point.
my body would complain at some point and say, you know what, Darryl, there's something not quite right here.
No.
There's something missing. And it's the same with physical activity. You need to have a well-balanced, a nutritious movement diet. And it has to be appropriate. You need periods of rest, which would be the equivalent of not eating. So you need periods of not moving. You need periods of recovering from activity. You need periods of sleep, which will ensure that you repair and grow overnight. All these things are important. So if you're doing too much, don't blame exercise. Blame the programming. Blame the inappropriate prescription. That's what I would suggest as the solution.
I'm gonna thank you, but I'm gonna leave you with a point that I learned from since your seminar. I've exercised a bit smarter. I exercise a bit more functionally, and there's also physical therapists that are watching here that have also chimed in along with my wife. But a magical thing happened that we had a baby, our fifth baby.
Congratulations.
But you know what's really cool about it? And I thought about you every day, and it's kind of weird, right? But it's not weird because I would watch her because I got to watch her from crawling to walking to running, and I watched her intently. I watched what her toes did. I watched she would squat down effortlessly, and we call it weightlifting, ass to the grass. Excuse me, guys.
Yeah.
but she would sit there and play with her butt all the way down on her knees. And I said, if I ever went in that position, you'd have to call the paramedics to get me out of it. And what happened? Like, I no, and so the way she jumped, the way she ran, the way she uses her hands and activates that posterior chain, the muscles, I'm like, wow. And so it was a learning experience that you had opened my eyes to. And then furthermore, the Korean gentleman that I revere highly, he says, well, what do dogs do when they're tired? They lay down. So lay down when you need to. Learn from your dog. You thick head. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm a little thicker. Thank you for that. So what everything you're saying, and I have this firm belief, and I know you do as well, that all knowledge has been out there. We just have to rediscover it. We have to peel back that onion layer, right? Say, all right,
exactly.
yeah, this is what our ancestors did. Let's just do what they did. Oh, they ate liver. Oh, they moved this way, or they did this. This modern society thing, I think it's very easy to buy into. It's very easy to look at the glamour magazines. Oh, I just want you to share one thing because this is profound for me. You told me this. And this kind of speaks to that. And then I'm going to let you go, and I'm just going to thank you immensely. But you spoke that and correct me if I misquote you, but you said that they were going to do a photo shoot on men's health, and they went and did a photo shoot. And you're a pretty strong guy and a good-looking guy and a solid guy. But so they took the pictures, and you were all excited and everything. And then for whatever reason, they brought in this chiseled, like artificial, maybe steroid, I don't know, and they took pictures of him. And then you said that they didn't put your name, your picture on the cover. They put his, but his beautiful body wasn't even enough. That they had airbrushed him and made him look even better. So,
Yes.
So my message from that, I was like, first of all, I was like, wow. I ran home and told my wife that we have to be careful what we're buying into.
For sure, we do. And I'll tell you something else about that story, which is when I was doing the photo shoot, right? I remember this guy. He was half my age. He looked like an Adonis. I mean, he was a beautiful young man.
Just unbelievable.
We're doing these poses, and of course you're having to hold. I don't know. Let's say I'm climbing a tree or I'm doing pull-ups or something, and the photographer would be like, "Can you hold that position?" And I'd be holding this position for quite a while. And he said to me, this guy said to me, he said, "What sort of training do you do? Like how much training?"
Yeah,
and I was like,
awesome.
"I don't do that much." And he went, because I couldn't do what you're doing right now. And he went, "I'm in the gym 3 to 4 hours a day in the morning, 2 or 3 hours in the afternoon." He says, "I'm getting up every 2 hours to eat turkey breasts. I don't drink water for a couple of days because I want to lean out. I mean, he told me his regimen
It's
that he had
extremely
to
stressful
undertook.
on the body. I got bodybuilding friends, and they don't last very long. It just
Yeah, exactly. It's torture. So again, it's what price do you pay? There's always a cost. And so, yeah, I can look amazing, 5% body fat. I can go into the front cover, but I've had to go through hell in order to get there. And yeah, I was just like setting my alarm for every 2 hours during the night so I could eat
I,
turkey breasts. And
I
he
did that.
literally can only eat turkey breasts for like 2 or 3 weeks before the
I
shoot.
did that. There's big guys out there that say eat like 4 pounds of steak a day, and they would every 2 hours they get it down. But it puts an incredible stress on your son. So my
Yeah,
wife's mantra is: would you rather be skinny and physique pretty, or would you rather be strong and healthy? Absolutely strong and healthy, because nothing else
every single time.
matters.
Yeah, nothing else
Nothing else
matters.
matters.
It underpins
Nothing.
everything that we do. And I would also say, I think we need to also clarify the strong also includes
Mhm.
cardiovascularly strong as well. I want my heart and my lungs
Yeah.
to be as healthy
Good point.
as well as my physical, my musculoskeletal system. Because some people can go the other way where they go, oh, I just want to lift weights, and they don't consider that their heart.
Your heart is the pump that's going to move the nutrients about your body. I mean, that their heart, it's one
Exactly.
of the life forces. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Good
and the
point.
oxygen that comes in from the lungs, is also a life force of the body. So it's all, again, everything's interconnected. We don't work as we work as a unit. The entire body works as a unit, and we need to consider that when we're moving.
Great points.
Yeah, yeah,
Great points. So if people want to learn more about you and more about your methodology, the things you developed, I know you've written a few books. You could probably find them on Amazon or one of the other sites.
yeah. So
And
best place, you can come to my blog, which is called primalplay.com, primalplay.com. So there I talk about the primal play method. I talk about a lot of the research that has been discussed today. I have a significant evidence base on there looking at movement as medicine, as well as example videos and movements that I undertake. I also have a few books which you can also access from there. I have a new book coming out next month, mid April, called Animal Moves. So
really,
that's about training like an animal to become more human.
animal moves.
Animal Moves, yeah, and probably most important in terms of bigger picture is I'm starting a certification program, kind of a train the trainers program.
I had heard rumors of that. Okay.
So yeah, so that's happening this month in London and next month in the US.
So your message could go out exponentially because you'll have people. I'm trained to spread that message appropriately. I think
Yes,
that is
yeah,
unbelievable and
exactly. And
fantastic.
I will be doing a therapeutic track as well. So I will be I will be certifying trainers who will be able to look after certain populations.
Excellent. Wow. Thank
Yeah,
you for
so
that.
that's something that I'm very passionate about, and hopefully, possibly not this year, but at least next year's seminar, I will definitely have a track available for somebody. If somebody does ask the question, okay, I've got ME, how can I actually be using your methods? I will have coaches that will be able to take somebody through the appropriate dose and the right type of exercises to improve their health and well-being. And same for MS. If somebody has problems with gait and balance and
Excellent. Thank you.
and communication,
Excellent.
neurological communication, how can that be improved with certain types of movements? So all
Wow.
of that is to come in the future.
I didn't know that. Very good. Well, then what I'll do, folks, is post the show. I'll post in the comments his contact information and his website. Yeah, on Facebook as well.
Yeah. So if you want to search for Fitness Explorer, which is my
Okay.
kind of tag,
Fitness Explorer
yeah,
on
then you'll get me
Facebook.
on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those
Okay, all
good
three of
places.
those, and
Yeah.
YouTube channel, or not
Yeah.
so much.
Just
Yes.
if you Google Darryl Edwards, Darryl Edwards, I have the infamy. I'm not sure that's a good or bad thing, but I'm usually number one in the search.
Yeah,
So that's a
and
good
I
thing.
did search you, double R, folks,
Yes.
double R, and Primal. So I put Darryl Everett Primal Health and just a ton of information. He has an incredible website, and in the videos and all. You know, just look into that. We all can move. We all can learn from what he said. It's incredible. I'm so appreciative that he's here, and I know that everybody here from the comments is just overwhelmed with all your information, and you know, the thought of not moving is hopefully put to rest a bit, anyways, a bit.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I hope so too. So, so I think, you know, that's part of my mission is to speak, you know, is to speak about the importance of movement, the medicine of movement, and to ensure that people hear this message, because I believe it's really important.
it just
and
occurred
secondly,
yes,
that it can be fun too.
and it can be fun too. Yes,
Yeah.
I enjoy it. I miss it. I'm going down right now. I'm going to get up. I'm going to have some water, and I'm going to go. And my wife's waiting. One thing, are you going to be at the Wall Seminar this year?
I hope so. I did speak to Terry yesterday,
Okay.
so I did get an invite. So I reckon I will be.
You did. All right.
So,
Well, if he
yeah.
does, I'm sure he'll make that announcement. But if you get the pleasure to meet him, you'll be utterly impressed, and you'll learn an incredible amount. And so, not to plug Terry Wall's seminar, but it was life changing for me because I got to meet people like Darryl and not only Terry, and then the rest of the folks there. So I just thought I'd throw that out there because he was part and parcel of what changed in my thinking. So.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it, Ron. I had no idea until today's conversation. So
Yeah, I have a
appreciate
funny memory, and when things strike me like you do, I can remember word for word and things. So you were impressive.
Oh,
So
no, thank you. I really appreciate it because you were very inspirational too. So it was definitely two-way. There was two-way traffic.
well,
So
I just want you to know that, you know, like I told Dr. Charlin and Dr. Walls, I mean, there are certain pioneers, and there are two premier pioneers. But you know what? You're you're a third. You're up there, and I think it helps me. It motivates me to work out, to eat properly, because I know I'm helping people, and I just wanted to make sure that you understood that there are people like me and others listening that you're really changing their lives. And what's better in life if you could exponentially change others?
Yeah, and I'd just like to say as well, for anyone listening, if there were any questions that you had which weren't answered during this episode, put them in the comments, and I'll definitely get round to answer.
It's very generous of you.
So
Very generous of
so
you.
any questions you've got, pop them in the comments, and I'll make sure I won't say I don't know. I'll definitely have an answer for you.
When I was in the military, the proper response was, "I don't know, sir, but I'll find out." You know, that's many years ago. Thank you again, sir. Have a great day, all the way from the other side of the pond, joining us. I feel very, very privileged, and I just can't thank you enough. My heart
you're
definitely
welcome.
Feels out to you.
Cheers, and hopefully I'll see you in August if you go to the seminar. Pleasure. Thanks very much again for your time.
Bless.
It's been great.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.